Derivative, sum and difference rule. The sum and difference rule for derivative goes like this. Take the derivative of f of x plus or minus g of x. And what do you need to do with that? You take the derivative of the f of x and then plus or minus and take the derivative of g of x. For example, let's say that you need to take the derivative of this expression right here. So, to take the derivative of this first expression, you have to recognize that you need to use the constant multiple rule. And as for the second expression, you need to recognize that you need to use the power rule. And as for the last expression, you need to know that you need to use the constant rule of the derivative, which I have covered in the previous video. So to take the derivative of this expression, you use the constant multiple rule. How do you use the constant multiple rule? You bring out the 3 and you take the derivative of x to the second power. As for negative x to the third, you use the power rule. How do you do that? You bring down the exponent, in this case, which is 3. So you bring down the 3 and the x stays the same. As for the exponent, the 3, you always minus 1 according to the power rule. So the answer will be like this for this expression right here. And take the derivative of 6 by using the constant rule. The constant rule said that every time you take the derivative of a constant basically means the number itself, and the formula says that it will become 0. So every time you take the derivative of a constant, it will be 0. Now that we have this all cleared up, we still need to take the derivative of x to the second power. So x to the second power, recognize that you need to use the power rule of the derivative. So you bring down the 2. As for the exponent, which is 2, you minus 1. So it will be x to the first power. After you take all the derivative, you just do the basic algebra to get the answer. So it will be like this. This is the answer for this particular derivative. Example 2. Let's say that you are asked to take the derivative of this whole expression. So, to take the derivative of 2 times radical x, you bring out the 2. But before you do that, you always change the radical into 1/2, because a radical x also means that it's x raised to 1/2. And then you take the derivative of it. So taking a derivative of this expression right here, you take out the 2 and you take the derivative of x raised to 1/2. Then you take the derivative of x, and you also need to take the derivative of this expression. For this expression, you take out the constant and you take the derivative of x. So it will be like this. 2 times taking the derivative of x to 1/2, you use the power rule. So you bring down the 1/2, the x always stays the same, and 1/2 minus 1 will become negative 1/2. Then you take the derivative of x. Taking the derivative of x will become 1. How do you get 1? You do it like this, like taking a derivative of x. The number in front of the x is 1, but we normally don't write it. And as for the exponent, it's also 1. But normally we don't write the 1 and the 1 like that. we just assume knowing that it's there already. So to take the derivative of x, you write it like this, and then you bring down the exponent, so it become 1 times 1. As for the exponent, you always minus 1, so it will be 1x raised to 0. We know that every time you have an x raised to a 0, the answer will be 1. I mean, that one is, you just need to know it. X raised to a 0 will always be 1. So 1 times 1 equals to equals to 1. If you don't want to do all this tedious algebra, just memorize that every time you take a derivative of x, it equals to 1. So this is how you get the 1 right here when you take the derivative of x. And 2 times 1 will become 2, because taking a derivative of x will be 1. Okay, notice that this x is raised to a negative exponent. We don't want a negative exponent, so you divided it by 1, which brings down the exponent to the denominator, and the exponent right here will become positive. So it will be like this: 1/2 times 1 divided by x 1/2. When you do that, you will make the exponent become positive. Every time you see a variable with a negative exponent, you always want to make it into a positive exponent by bringing it down to the denominator like this. So you do a basic algebra to clear up the expression right here. So it will be like, the answer will be like this. Example 3. Let's say that they want you to find the derivative of x plus 3 times x plus 6. To find this derivative, the first thing you need to do is to make it into a polynomial by multiplying out. So you multiply the x times x, which equals to x squared. Then you take the x times positive 6, which equals to positive 6x. Then 3 times x equals to positive 3x. And then 3 times 6 will be positive 18. And on the middle term right here, you just add it up. So it will be 9x. Once you have this form into a polynomial form, then it will be easier to take the derivative out of it. So to take the derivative of x to the second, you have to recognize that you need to use the power rule. The power rule always says bring down the exponent, bring down the exponent and write the x variable the same. And as for the exponent, you minus 1. And when you have this form, you always take out the 9. Then you take the derivative of the variable. So it will become taking the derivative of x, it always equals to 1. So the answer will be like this.